The headline said, "A family crossover just matched a Porsche 911. That part is true. It is also the least important number in the entire test. MotorTrend strapped their gear to the 2027 Rivian R2 Performance and came back with a 0 to 60 time of 3.4 seconds and a quarter mile of 11.3 seconds at 128.6 miles per hour. Edmunds ran the same trim at their own track and clocked 3.7 seconds to 60, with a trap speed of 128.1. Both outlets landed within a tenth of each other on the number that mattered, and that trap speed is the exact figure Edmunds recorded from a Porsche 911 GT hybrid. Here is why that matters far less than the internet decided it does. Trap speed costs you nothing to own. It does not appear on your insurance quote, your electricity bill, or the trade-in sheet 3 years from now. Every number that will actually determine what this vehicle cost you was recorded during that same testing window by the same people, and almost none of it made a headline. So today is not a review. It is a cost analysis, because the rule on this channel has never changed. The first owner pays for the badge, the second owner gets the bargain. The only question worth asking about a brand new R2 Performance is which one of those two people you are about to become. Let us start with what was measured, because the acceleration story is genuinely impressive. The R2 Performance is the only trim Rivian currently sells. Dual motor, all-wheel drive, 656 horsepower, 609 pound-feet. Rivian's own claim was 3.6 seconds to 60. MotorTrend beat that claim by 2/10 on a test car weighing 4,986 pounds, roughly 500 pounds heavier than a Model Y. What stood out was not the launch, it was what happened after. Most electric vehicles punch hard off the line and flatten out past 60 as drag catches up. The R2 did not follow that pattern. The Tesla Model Y Performance beat it to 60. So did the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. By the quarter mile, the Rivian had passed the Tesla and caught the Hyundai, trapping roughly 6 miles per hour faster than either. MotorTrend also compared it against a Porsche Macan GTS Electric, which was quicker to 60 at 3.3 seconds, but needed 11.6 seconds for the quarter mile at 121.1. The cheaper car had more left at the top end. That is a real engineering result. But here is the honest caveat, and it is worth sitting with, because it comes back in a much more expensive form later. MotorTrend recorded 3.4 seconds. Edmunds recorded 3.7. Same trim, 0.3 apart, both correct. Anyone who quotes you a 0 to 60 figure to the 10th as though it were a fixed property of the vehicle is telling you more about their confidence than about the car. Now, the numbers from the same test that nobody put in a thumbnail. MotorTrend flagged problems in their brake testing and said they would like feedback from Rivian on it. Edmunds reported stopping distances roughly level with the Model Ys they had on hand, but a clearly lower skid pad number, and noted the R2 carries about 3 more inches of ground clearance than either Tesla, so it leans more. Both outlets pointed at the same cause. The R2 rides on 21-inch wheels, wearing Pirelli Scorpion MS tires, a hard compound all-season tire built for tread life and rolling resistance, not grip. Here is the caveat that actually favors Rivian. That tire choice was not an accident. Rolling resistance is one of the biggest levers over range, and Rivian made a deliberate trade toward the commuter rather than the cone course. A stickier tire would fix the skid pad number and would cost real range and tread life. But notice what happened to the story. The headline number came from the one test where tires barely matter. Every test where tires do matter came back merely fine. Now let us talk about the other side of this comparison. Because there is a Model Y problem. It is real, and almost nobody in the American car conversation has read the actual report. In Germany, every car goes through a mandatory technical inspection, most of it carried out by the Technischer Überwachungsverein, shortened to TÜV. Think of it as an inspection authority with the reach of the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, backed by a sample size no American survey can touch. The 2026 report analyzed roughly 9.5 million inspections across 216 models. In the 2 to 3-year-old category, out of 110 models, the Tesla Model Y finished 110th, dead last. Its rate of significant or dangerous defects was 17.3%, against an age group average around 6.5%, and TÜV called it the worst defect rate recorded in that bracket in 10 years. The Model 3 sat 2 spots ahead at 13.1%. What was actually breaking? Axle suspension, brake discs, and lighting. AutoBuild's follow-up breakdown found 2.9% of Model Ys with significant axle suspension defects, against an average of 0.2%, roughly 14.5 times the norm, tied to worn load bearing and guide joints. Brake discs came in at 2.8%, against an average of 1.1%. TÜV's managing director explained the mechanism on the record. Suspension components fight the weight of a large drive battery every mile, and friction brakes barely get used because regenerative braking does most of the work, so the discs sit there corroding instead of being cleaned up by normal use. 3 honest caveats, and they matter. First, most electric models in the same study performed at or above comparable combustion cars, with the Mini Cooper SE, the Fiat 500e, and the Audi Q4 e-tron singled out as strong performers. The Teslas were the outlier, not the category. Second, these Model Ys had unusually high mileage, averaging about 34,000 miles at 2 to 3 years old, and TÜV noted deficits in service and maintenance alongside design weaknesses, meaning part of that number is owners who never replaced worn joints. Third, this is the pre-refresh Model Y. Whether the current car carries the same numbers into its own third year is genuinely unknown. Here is why a used car channel cares about a German inspection report. Suspension joints and brake discs generate repair estimates in the $1,500 to $3,000 range at exactly the moment a car leaves warranty and hits the used market, which is exactly when a second owner is deciding what to pay. So what has this done to the money? Kelley Blue Book has the 2023 Model Y at 44% depreciation over 3 years, $23,430 gone, leaving a resale value of $28,700. For reference, AWDCars puts the 5-year depreciation for all SUVs at 44.9%. The Model Y is losing in 3 years what the average SUV loses in 5. And now the twist, because despite all of that, the Model Y is currently holding value better than the average electric crossover, sitting in a similar depreciation range to the Honda TCR-V and Toyota RAV4. Used Tesla prices are posting small year-over-year gains instead of double-digit losses. Both things are true. The damage was largely self-inflicted through Tesla's repeated price cuts and fleet dumping. And a floor, once it has fallen, stops falling. The buyers who lost the money were the 2021 and 2022 owners. The person shopping a 3-year-old Model Y today is buying after the loss, not before it. Which brings us to the question this video exists to answer. Rivian is now asking you to be the first owner of a brand new model at close to $60,000 in that same market. So what does Rivian's own resale record actually look like? AWDCars projects a new Rivian R1S depreciates 67.7% after 5 years. Resale value $24,860. Worse than even its brutal luxury electric SUV category, average of 65.2%. The R1T pickup fares better in absolute terms, 54.5% at 5 years, but its category, pickups, only loses 32.9% over the same period, so relative to its own segment, it is the bigger underperformer. Here is the honest caveat, and it is the most important thing in this video. Those forecasts and the actual transaction data do not agree. A 2022 R1T that stickered at $74,500 is showing a real resale value near $45,953, about 38% down after 4 years, worse than the model predicts. But independent tools, with a 3-year look back on the 2023 R1S show, roughly 30 to 32% depreciation, better than the 40 to 50% typical for luxury SUVs at that age. And Kelley Blue Book has the 2024 R1S losing only about 10% in its first year, top 10% for retention among all 2024 SUVs. So which is it? The reason both answers are defensible is that depreciation forecasts are built on segment history and volume, and Rivian has very little of either. Low production numbers, a young brand, no decade of auction data, and an owner base unusually unwilling to sell. Thin data produces confident forecasts that turn out wrong in both directions. The R2, a first model year vehicle from a company with 2 products and no long resale history, is that same problem, squared. Anybody who tells you exactly what an R2 will be worth in 3 years is guessing with a spreadsheet open. There is one more number though, and unlike a forecast, this one was measured on real pavement. Out-of-spec reviews ran an R2 Performance and a Model Y Performance on the same road, same day, same speed, until both stopped moving. The Rivian's corrected result was 253 miles at 70 miles per hour, 76.7% of its 330-mile EPA rating. The Model Y covered 317.8 miles against a 306-mile rating, beating its own sticker by nearly 4%. A separate efficiency test found the R2 consuming 18.4 to 26.5% more energy than the Model Y at every speed measured, on 2 vehicles with identical 105 mile per gallon equivalent combined ratings. 3 honest caveats. First, the tester flagged the 70 mile per hour highway loop as a soft data point, run in heavy traffic with truck slipstream, on camera. Second, physics. The R2 carries 9.6 inches of ground clearance and off-road angles the Model Y was never built with. And that shape has an aerodynamic cost that is not a defect, it is the invoice for the capability. Third, and this one favors Rivian outright, charging. 10 to 80% in 29 minutes, roughly 6.1 miles of range per minute, meaningfully faster than the Model Y's curve, which claws back real time on an actual road trip. But it does not claw back all of it. Range is the single most searched, most compared, most anchored specification in the used electric vehicle market. An 87.9 kilowatt-hour pack returning 253 real highway miles does not read the same on a used lot as a smaller, cheaper pack returning 317. 3 years from now, the second owner is not looking up a trap speed. He is looking at the range estimate on the screen and pricing accordingly. Now let us put actual dollars on the table. A 2027 R2 Performance with the launch package is $59,485, the only trim available right now. Later this year, the premium arrives at $55,485, 450 horsepower, 4.6 seconds to 60, same 330-mile rating. In early 2027, the single-motor standard lands at $49,985, 5.9 seconds to 60, and the longest range in the lineup at 345 miles. Look at that lineup as a depreciation problem instead of a performance menu. The Performance carries the highest price, the shortest real-world range, the hardest tires, the wheels that make the range worse, and the least proven residual value. It is the trim where you pay the largest premium for the number that evaporates first. The standard costs $9,500 less, goes 15 miles farther on the EPA cycle, and asks you to give up the one attribute no used buyer in 3 years will pay extra for. On the other side, the used Model Y at $28,700 is a car where somebody else already absorbed the $23,430 loss. Values have stopped falling, and it now depreciates at roughly CRV and RAV4 pace. What comes with that bargain is a car the German Inspection Authority ranked 110th out of 110 for defects at exactly the age you would be buying it. Neither is a trap. They are 2 different bills, arriving at 2 different times. The R2 buyer pays his upfront and slowly in depreciation and charging stops. The used Model Y buyer pays his later and in lumps, in control arms and brake discs, at a shop, on a Tuesday. So here is where I land, and I am going to be direct, because that is what this channel is for. The engineering under the R2 is real. The drivetrain does something genuinely unusual at speed. The charging curve beats what it is being compared against, and the unibody platform behaves far better than the truck-based R1S ever did. This is not a company shipping a bad product. But the performance trim is the wrong end of that lineup to buy with your own money. It maximizes the specification that costs the most and returns the least on a first model year vehicle. in a segment that has already shown it will punish first owners. If you want an R2, the premium or the standard is where the math is least hostile to you. And if what you actually want is a Model Y, buy the 3-year-old one, get an independent inspection that looks specifically at the suspension joints and brake discs, and budget $1,500 to $3,000 for that work before you negotiate. Not because the car is bad, because the largest inspection data set on the planet told you in advance where it wears. The first owner pays for the badge. The second owner gets the bargain. The trap speed on the R2 is the badge. It is the most expensive thing on that window sticker, and the first thing to become worthless. So tell me, $59,485 for a brand new R2 Performance that outruns a Macan Electric and gives up 57 highway miles to a Tesla, or $28,700 for a 3-year-old Model Y where somebody else already ate the depreciation, plus a suspension budget on top. Which one are you writing the check for, and what is the deciding factor? Range, residual value, repair risk, or the fact that one of them is just more fun to drive? Tell me in the comments. If the depreciation data in this one was useful, stick around. That is the whole point of this channel, and the reason I go read the German inspection reports so you do not have to. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.